Black women are 3 times more likely to die. 80% of those are preventable. So my question is like, why? Why is that happening? I was working in a hospital. I remember one of our doctors, he was getting ready to go on vacation. It was like around like Christmas time, and he was trying to get out of there, but he still had like one more mom that was laboring. And I think what really shocked me was like how fast he was trying to get her to progress because he wanted to be in and out.
Meet Akira Bias, a proud Haitian-American public health advocate, certified doula, and a passionate champion for maternal health equity. Armed with a master's degree and a heart for service, she educates, empowers, and advocates, turning her personal mission into a lifeline for countless women and families.
Can you walk us through your journey in public health? How did you get there?
I realized like there were so many aspects of medicine or healthcare, science-based and more like public health-based. How do I make this community better? How do I teach these individuals or these group of individuals how to have access to better care?
Welcome to Jules Legacy Enterprise Productions. This is your home for powerful stories and game-changing insights. This segment, Conversation with a Pioneer, highlights the success stories of North Miami Senior High School pioneers and guests who just might change your life forever. Each episode brings fresh energy and unexpected inspirations. So stay tuned because you never know who's next to light your path. Today, we're joined by Akira Bias, a dynamic force in the public health field. As a passionate advocate for entrepreneurship and cultural empowerment, Akira brings a wealth of experience and deep commitment to fostering innovation and growth. Let's dive into her story and insights. Hey, Akira, before we dive in, what is one unexpected thing about yourself that's fun that a lot of people do not know?
Okay, so well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate us having this conversation, especially as a proud pioneer. I think it's important for us to highlight some of us individuals who are doing work in this space, so thank you. Even you talking about me being a dynamic in the public health space, I'm like, ooh, that's me. Like, so I think it's really important that I do hold up to that title. So thank you so much. Now to go back to your question, what is something about me that is unexpected?
Yeah, something that many people do not know. It's fun, but a lot of people may not know.
Okay, I think recently I picked up a lot of new hobbies. Like I'm a person that, because my job requires me to have like a lot of like mental energy, so I've been like diving into certain hobbies, and one of the things that I really been diving into is Legos. Like Legos has been a new passion of mine, and I'm really excited about, because the type of person that I am, I'm very logical. So like in order for me to do Legos, it allows me to kind of like put my brain to the side for a little bit and just do like mindless tasks. And they're cute. So I'm a big fan of Legos. So whenever I'm like stressed or I just want something to do, I'll pick up a new like set and then I'll build it.
What have you built?
A lot. So like I've had some botanical pieces where like they're different flowers. So like orchids, I've had some bamboo plants. And then I recently got my favorite city, which I'm really excited about.
Okay.
So it's like an architecture one from the architecture series. Like New York is like really cool. I go there every summer, so having that.
Do you have those on display or do you just put them away after?
I do have them on display. So like in my apartment, I'm actually thinking about dedicating a space to put them up. Okay. So I could like highlight my little gallery, so then when guests come in, I'd be like, look what I built. so I'm really excited about that.
Okay. Have you ever been to Legoland, by the way?
No, I have not. So that's on the bucket list. I heard Legoland is great, and especially there's one in Tokyo and like Paris, so I'm really excited to hit those ones too.
Man, that's dope.
Yeah.
You mentioned New York, or were you born and raised in New York?
No, actually. So I was born in Miami, and then we moved to New Hampshire, I want to say when I was about 10 or 11. So I consider myself a New Englander in a sense, because a lot of like my formative years are there. But again, I spent a lot of time in New York. Like that's where my father's side of the family are. So like I spent a lot of time like visiting, spending time with them, being in the city, and like New York is just like a good time. Like I feel like there's a lot of food, a lot of culture, a lot of people. It's the city that never sleeps. So like being in New York City is always really fun.
So how did you end up back in Miami? Because you were a pioneer. So did you do your high school here?
Yeah. So like what ended up happening is that my senior year of high school, my grandmother got really sick. So because of that, my mom thought, okay, like we probably need to go back home and just kind of like help her set up there. So she uprooted the entire family and she brought us down here. And can you imagine, like I'm 17 years old, like I've already already have like my like friends. I'm like dating this guy at the time. Like I'm having like, just like my whole life is like picture perfect, right? And she comes up to me and she comes into my room and she's like, hey, we're moving. And I was like, moving? And I'm thinking that she's talking about like moving to a new house or like down the street or even to like a new school. And she's like, yeah, well, we're moving back to Florida. And I'm like, what? So all of us like packed up like really quickly, I want to say like probably that summer. And then we moved down to Miami, and then like that was my senior year. So then I ended up going to North Miami Senior High.
How was that experience?
How was that experience? So I always laugh about that experience because I think for me personally, it was a culture shock. So like I grew up in a very like, I want to say like white suburban area. So I was pretty much one of, I want to say like 6 or 7 Black students at my school. So I kind of acclimated to like, you know, being the minority, right? So like coming down to North Miami Senior High where the population, like the majority is the minority, right? So there's a lot of like Caribbean people, Haitian people specifically. So because of that, I was just like, what's going on? Like I went from like not really practicing my Creole to like pretty much having professors or like teachers at the time like speaking that back to me. So like coming back home, I feel like not only did I miss just like being around the people and my culture, but it got me a chance to kind of like have a reintroduction into like things that are happening and like some of the issues or like some of the experiences that my fellow students are having around that time. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
What was one of the most difficult transition moments for you when you came from New Hampshire back to North Miami?
I feel like that's a good question. I want to say a lot of it. I think because of the fact that like new school, like I had to kind of create like new friends, new experiences. For me, I felt like I was navigating being in a different country in a sense, right? Because like I was so used to like my set group of classes and people that I were used to. So coming back to North Miami, I kind of felt like an outcast for the large percent of my senior year because like as a senior, everyone has already established their friend groups and their classes. So like having to kind of be like the new kid again was very eye-opening for me. Like I had to kind of like get out of my shell. Like I want to say I'm very introverted, so it kind of forced me to like, you know, like introduce myself to people, kind of like find out what types of clubs or activities that are happening at the school and kind of like putting myself in those spaces so that way I can find some sort of like familiarity in a sense.
Were the students receptive?
I want to say, like, to be honest, not really. I want to say for me personally, I just feel like they were so used to seeing a specific type of student and being that I was from somewhere that was like they never heard about. So like even me saying, hi, I'm Akira, like I just came from New Hampshire, and everyone's like, what's New Hampshire? And I'm like, well, it's the state above Massachusetts.
Right.
So that was like very difficult because like there's a lot of students who hadn't even traveled outside of their state, right? So to come from like I think about 12 or 1,300 miles away for them, like that was like very eye-opening. So kind of understanding like the language and the culture and like even having like at the time, I remember North Miami had metal detectors, which was something that I wasn't used to because the way my school was back in New Hampshire, like seniors especially had that opportunity to leave campus and like go get lunch or whatever, right? So like we would have our classes in the morning, then we would go get lunch, we would drive off campus. You could be gone for a few hours as long as you made it back to your class in the afternoons. So for me, not having the opportunity to like leave campus or having to like have my bag checked going in and out of the school was very eye-opening because I felt like I was kind of like going through TSA every time. So that was something that I was getting used to. And also uniforms, right? So like in the school that I was in, the way you dressed was like a big expression of like who you were as a person. Yeah. Okay. So like going from that to wearing like only uniform, like I just had to get used to that, right? Like wearing like the same set of colors and everything. So all that was a huge adjustment. I think for me, being that like I was like about to leave high school to have to like kind of feel like a freshman in a way where we're just kind of like lost. We're kind of like doughy-eyed. We're trying to figure out like where we fit in, like what to wear, who to talk to, what teachers, like and stuff like that. So that was like very difficult for me, I would say. Yeah.
Can you walk us through your journey in public health? How did you get there?
Okay. I want to say like my public health journey was it wasn't a straight and narrow one. I think a lot of times people kind of know what they want early on. That wasn't my case. So for as long as I remember, like I wanted to be a doctor, specifically in the OBGYN, right? So like in the OB-GYN field, I was just like really diving into like, okay, med school. Like that was like the focus. And essentially like somewhere along the line, like, you know, life gives us our detours, right? So through my first detour, I realized like there were so many aspects of medicine or healthcare specifically that I was gravitating toward that that was less science-based and more like public health and social science-based, right? Okay. So I really dived into like finding my interest in like not just like an individual, right? Because doctors essentially see their patient and they have like that one-on-one individual conversation, or they meet with them individually, right? Whereas like with the public health sector, you have the opportunity to be on a macro or a micro scale. And I really found a passion in like community health. I was like, okay, how do I make this community better? How do I teach these individuals or these group of individuals how to eat better, how to have access to better care? And by doing so, I realized that, you know what, like public health is like something that's like not only like near and dear to my heart, but I feel like it spoke to me as my person. And I just feel like that was like where my passion really stayed, right? Because then I had the opportunity to figure out, why are like some of the individuals, like, are they sick because of family history, or are they sick because they have food deserts, right? Like, are they sick because of the fact that they don't have access to like proper healthcare, or because of the fact that they're from a lower socioeconomic class, like they're not able to afford healthy food, right? Or even like housing that doesn't necessarily contain like, I don't know, like windows or pesticides, like all these contributing factors, right? Or as we like to say in public health, social determinants of health. Okay. Which kind of like pretty much tells you like based on someone's education, where they live, who they interact with, how much money they make, that will determine the overall health of that individual. So I was really excited to learn about that and then figure out how can we course correct, right? Because a lot of times, especially in our community, we always hear like things of like hypertension, diabetes being like, oh, or like cholesterol even as part of our family history, when in reality, I disagree with that notion. I think the idea is that because of the fact that we're eating a certain way, those same recipes and ways of living get passed down, right? And because of that, we are finding commonality between those types of issues.
So it's not hereditary?
Not necessarily. I think there are some hereditary, like, or some genetic components,
right,
but not always, right? Because it's kind of like the nurture versus nature. Like, you can kind of like for example, if you know that in your family you have high blood pressure and you
right,
have like diabetes or like cholesterol, there are ways that you can combat it very early, right? So like getting your exercise, like getting a certain amount of minutes every week, right? Cutting out certain foods, all that plays a huge factor on whether you're going to inherit that disease, right? Like you could have predispositions or like comorbidities regarding that, but you can course correct, right? Certain things, like for example, are not necessarily in our control, but what I want to focus on, what are some things that are in our control that we can change generationally?
So after high school, you graduated in 2012?
Yeah, graduated 2012.
Where did you go for undergrad?
So undergrad, I went back up to New Hampshire. So I went to Plymouth State University.
So you went back to Boston?
I did, well, like New Hampshire, yeah, because like at the time I had applied for, I believe it was called early decision.
Right.
Yeah, so even if I wanted to like stay down here and go to the schools down here, because I had already applied for, I think it's early decision, what it is that it basically essentially says that, okay, if you get into that school, you're kind of like committing to that school. Okay. Yeah, so then I got in really early, and like that was able to contribute to like my financial aid, so that I just went back up there. So
how was your mom receptive towards that? Because she moved everybody down here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she was necessarily receptive, but I think she understood that like her responsibility as a daughter was to like help out her mother, but then she knew that I too needed to go to school, right? Okay. So like there was an argument where like, okay, well you could kind of go to that school for a year and then come back after a year, but I just figured the moving back and forth was just too strenuous for me. So we had our like wits or odds about it, but at the end of the day, she just wanted me to like get an education. I don't think she really cared about where.
Yeah. What'd you major in?
Biology, and then I had a minor in chemistry.
Any class that's, would you say, resonate with you that was probably one of the toughest class you...
How much time do you have? So like bio and like chem majors, so many of our classes are very difficult because a lot of them are like pretty lab based. So like, I kid you not, like I want to say a class that really humbled me was like organic chemistry. I did really well in that class, but it took a lot of hours. Like it wasn't a class that you could take a few notes and then, you know, like kind of go about your way or like study for an exam. It's kind of like the concepts continuously built upon each other. Right. So you had to do like, not only was like there a lab component, but there were also a class component, and there were two different things. So sometimes you may be covering topics that would overlap, but they would be different, right? So having to navigate those two parts was very difficult for me. And then I remember another class I had that was really difficult, and I kid you not, I cried every day. It was my neurobiology class. Oh, man. I will never forget with Dr. Shabat. Like, he is a brilliant man, but he's also a very, like, I would say he expects so much out of his students, right? Because he knows that we're capable. So at the time when he was teaching us, or like his methodology of teaching was just so difficult at the time, because we're like, why is this man pushing us so hard? And I think he just demanded nothing but excellence. He knew we could do the work because of the fact that not only did we get into the school, but we signed up for the class. So for like literally like every day, I remember like coming home from class and my roommate would already have a box of tissues like by the table because she knew I was gonna come in and like just cry about it. But I literally cried the entire, like every day. It was a very difficult class. Like who knew learning about your brain, right? Like, so like learning about how you learn, how difficult that could be. And then doing so like, but I feel like there was a lesson there. I feel like that class really shaped me as a science person. It really shaped me as someone who like got into like data, because it forced me to like not accept what I was being done, right? So at the time I remember like we had to do, I ended up doing my senior thesis on it. So it was the effects, you see, I think I still remember it even today. It's the effects of
It stayed with you.
It stayed with me, yeah. Honestly, like ironically enough, I remembered everything in that class, but it was called, it was the neuropeptide factor F on the circadian and circatidal rhythms of limulus polyphemus, which is basically just like, what are the sleep patterns and movement patterns of horseshoe crabs? And now you're like probably wondering like, what's a horseshoe crab? I didn't know what that was either, right?
Right.
But at the end of that experiment, because we had to design it, we had to test it, we had to present it, you learn so much about it. And the reason why that specific animal, because it's a marine animal, it's an arthropod, the reason why it's so important is because of the blood of the horseshoe crab, or the American polyphemus, which is like the like scientific name, is because they use a lot of it for like blood synthesis, right? So like based on how their behavior is, we could then take the opportunity to like apply that to humans, right? So like there are a lot of things, like you could test it on blood, you could test it on like how certain like biomechanisms regarding like the human body. So like I learned a lot from there, right? And because they do a lot of these testings on these types of animals, doctors then translate it onto humans, and it can essentially like save lives. So I say all this to say that like that class was very difficult, but I learned so much.
Did you pick that topic, or they gave you that topic?
Yes and no. So like at the beginning of the semester, you had the opportunity to design an experiment of your choosing. However, it had to be within like the marine biology space, right? So because of that, I was like, in my head as a student, I was like, how can I get through this class in the easiest way possible, right? Like
right.
It's very difficult, but at the same time, I'm like, I know my professor knows a lot about horseshoe crabs. Like that's what he got his PhD in. So I figured if I had any questions about the specific animal, he would be the person that I would reach out to. Whereas if you would do it on anything else, you would have to like partner with other professors, and it just becomes very like cumbersome, because then you're like running across campus, you're like calling other professors from different universities. Sometimes they're not available depending on their schedule. So I was like, how do I think smart about this? Like I want to work smarter and not harder. So I decided to go with him. But again, because he was like my, I guess he was like my advisor at the time, like he made it very difficult.
And I want to ask, the path that you took, leaving, right?
Yeah.
So going back to New Hampshire to go back to school. Being an elder sibling, how did that retrospect with your siblings? As far as how did that transition affect them? And how are they now looking up to you for that?
I want to say for them specifically, I think it was difficult too, right? Because it wasn't just me that was experiencing all these changes, but them as well. Okay. However, they're a lot younger, right? So like the age gap between my siblings on my mom's side, I want to say it's like 12, 13, and 14. So at the time that I was graduating, I think my brother had just turned, if I remember, I think he was like in like 5th grade or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So for them, like me leaving, I kind of felt bad. I felt like I was like not only leaving my responsibility as an eldest daughter, but I felt like not only did I had to leave, but like I had to leave and do well. Like it gave me the opportunity to like not make any mistakes, because I knew that there were like little people kind of looking up to me. And that's just something that I still carry on today. Like I try my best to be a good example for them. So that way they not only can be proud of me as their sibling, but they can have someone to look up to, right? Because like, I don't know if you can resonate, but like being the eldest child, you don't necessarily like have someone that you can look up to, like apart from your parents. So you kind of have to be like the trailblazer of the family. Like you have to make your mistakes, but you have to make them in such a way that it's not creating some sort of like huge hindrance on your siblings. Like you don't want to like disappoint them in a way, right? Okay. And being the eldest child and also like the daughter of like first generation immigrant parents, I feel there's a lot of pressure to do well, right? Like your options are very limited. Like it's either doctor, lawyer, engineer, and then anything outside of that, you have to really like fight tooth and thin nail to kind of like spread a path, like set this path for yourself. And it doesn't really leave room for error, in my opinion, because it's like if you mess up, and not only if you mess up, but like if you mess up publicly and you bring like shame to the family, it's always like, well, you like should have taken the path that I have carved out for you. So that's what I thought about every day, like every decision, every class that I made, like how well I did do or didn't do in class. Like I thought about how, like, what would my siblings think, right? Like certain, you know, like with the college experience, I feel like there are certain things that like kids, like parties and all that stuff. Like I took everything with a grain of salt because I was like, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm like the only person here. I don't have family nearby. Like I don't have the luxury that some of my fellow peers had, as far as like, you know, being a kid in a way, right? Like making these stupid mistakes because I knew that there was going to be a greater consequence attached to that.
Did you pledge?
I did not pledge. So funny enough, my school, because it was like a PWI, like if I had the opportunity to like go back in time and like do it all again, I definitely would have gone to an HBCU. But yeah, I didn't pledge.
Why HBCU?
Because I feel like there's a certain like culture that happens at HBCUs that makes you so proud of your blackness. And also being that I am a first generation Haitian American, I didn't really, but like being at an HBCU, you are surrounded by black excellence for all 4 years.
Right.
So that the ceiling is much higher, because then you're telling yourself like, okay, like if they could be a judge, I could be a judge. Like if they could be an architect, I could be an architect. Like if they could be a lawyer, doctor, whatever, or if they want to be in media or politics, that person is so within reach. It's not someone that you kind of have to like see as like this like figment of your imagination, or have like this theory where it's like, oh, this is not attainable, because they're right there in front of you.
Right.
So yeah, so I would have definitely gone to HBCU, probably like Spelman or like Howard, and like pledge and did the whole like thing.
So
would you pledge?
You still didn't explain why you didn't pledge.
Oh well, because like at my school they just didn't have that sorority.
Okay.
So like the Divine Nine, as they would call it, just wasn't there. Like they had other sororities, but I had never heard about them before, and I was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. And then also too, like growing up very conservative and like SDA, like my mom was not gonna have that. She was not gonna have me like pledging, But it's just like kind of like those things that we would have to have agreed to disagree. Yeah.
What would you have pledged? AKA?
I said, yeah. Oh,
Delta.
I don't know. She's probably a Delta. Yeah. So I have like one of my cousins who's a Delta, and I'm like, yeah, I could see myself being with that specific sorority, because they're also big on really like public health. So like their focus like is like really big on like healthcare, community service. I don't know what their other things are, so don't quote me.
Right.
But I just know that those are like some like their big pillars for sure.
Where did you get your master's?
So I got my master's. So during that time, I got it at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences.
Okay.
So that is a school that's across from Harvard Medical School. So like what's cool is that like you work closely with Harvard Medical School, but also you're in downtown Boston. I believe it's in like the Longwood Medical area. And because of that, you have access to like MGH and like Boston Medical and like Boston Children. So like you're like in a hub where you have like some of the top hospitals like in the country. And because of that, like it's such a great place to learn, because you get like those real life experiences like right outside your door. Like if I had questions like before COVID happened, because I got my master's in 2020, 2021. So even before that, I had the opportunity of doing some research with the Haitian community in Boston. So like under like, there was like Mattapan, I believe it was, and Brockton. So like those areas are like a heavily populated like Haitian community. And because I had spoken Creole, like it gave me the opportunity to like speak to Mummy like down the street or whatever.
Right.
And I was able to kind of like share what some of like things that she was going through with my like students and professors and doctors. So like that really like was like a great experience for me.
You were selected to do your commencement speech.
I was selected to do my commencement speech.
How did that come about?
Oh my goodness. I can't believe you're gonna bring this up. So that was so scary for me, because so public speaking has something that I've always struggled with. I can do well in like small intimate settings, but like being on a stage for commencement, I honestly couldn't believe it, because I think when I went to get my master's, like my primary focus again was like med school at the time. So I was like, I have to be the best possible student, not just grade wise, but like I have to be like holistically, I just have to be the best of the best. So during that year and a half, like because I am somewhat an overachiever, I did my master's in under 2 years. I think I did it in like 18 months or something, but I literally put my head down. I remember putting my head down, and like by that I mean like I made sure I got like the best grades. So like I got like top grades in all my classes. But not only that, I was part of like the Public Health Society. I was like I was organizing certain events. I was working with different organizations like Spina Bifida, for example. And by doing that, like honestly, I was just really enjoying my time there. Like I wasn't thinking about, oh, at the end of this, I'm gonna get like X, Y, and Z. it was just like, how do I take this experience and make the most of it? So towards the end of like my master's program, I think it was like, I want to say like a month before graduation, I'm like, okay, cool. I did well. I'm almost done. And then I get a phone call from the president's office at the time. And they're like, hi. They're like, hi, we're like so-and-so from like the president's office. And I'm like, okay, cool. Why are they calling me? Like, are they going to pay my tuition? Like, that's what I thought it was about. But then they're like, yeah, they're like, we just wanted to congratulate you on your upcoming commencement. And we saw that you're like doing really well and like you're very involved. And we also like wanted to talk to you about some awards that you're getting. I'm like, okay, cool. So they're like, you're receiving, I think at the time it was like the president's diversity award or something like that. I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, and then they're like, also, we would like to ask you if you would like to be the commencement speaker for this year's graduation for the class of 2020 and 21. And I was like, what do you mean? I think I was confused. I like muted the phone. I was like, is she serious? I was like, I stutter really bad. Like growing up, I had like so many speaking issues. I was like, why me? So I kind of told her, I was like, hey, I don't know if I'm interested. Like, I really have to think about it. And then she was like, okay, well, like, please let us know, like, by, like, Friday or whatever. Hang up the phone, go about my day. So then I'm, like, telling my friends about it, and they're like, oh, no, you should do it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then literally she didn't even give me a full day. She calls me back, and she's like, hi. She's like, hi, this is, like, so-and-so from, like, the president's office again. And she's like, I just want to let you know that I am putting you down as the student commencement speaker.
Wow.
And she's like, if I do that, you can't say no. And then she's like, okay, bye. Like, she's like, have a great rest of your day. She hangs up. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So then now I'm like super nervous. But I think during that time, like writing the commencement speech, it gave me the opportunity to like really think about my journey. Like think about like my mom and like the sacrifices that she made to like make sure that I was in this very position. And I just feel like I owed it to not only my community, but also to her, right? So even in my commencement speech, I like thanked her profusely, but I also said that this was like a win for like not only myself, but to the people who supported me.
Since I have both of you guys on the platform, right? So both of you guys, the question goes towards you and Job.
Okay.
So being Haitian descent, of course, and coming here, Job came here, you were born here. Both of you guys hold masters, right? The question that I'm urged to ask, and I'm from both of your perspective, do you guys believe or do you guys think that college is a scam?
I'll let Job answer first. I've been talking a lot.
Do I believe that college is a scam?
Based on your experience and what you've learned and where you at now, what you've been able to accomplish, do you think the overall package is a scam?
No, I don't think college is a scam. I think what happened is when someone, now college is not for everyone either. I don't believe that college is for everyone. However, when you have a plan, and there's certain places you want to go, there's certain fields you must go to school for. Like you're not going to let somebody operate on you as a doctor if they don't have the right, certifications. And sometimes with college itself, if you don't have a community, right? Say I want to go into business. Now, some people necessarily don't have to go to school for business, which I did. But however, let's say there's people around that knows nothing about business, but now you're eager, you want to learn business because you want to make the least amount of mistake as possible and reap the highest reward. Where are you going to go? If you don't have a mentor, the best place you're going to be able to find that is in school. So in life, I would look at college itself as like the biggest mentor for the field or whichever area that you want to specialize in. Because if you want to learn how to be a doctor, who's going to mentor you? The college. If you want to learn how to be, if you want to be an engineer, it's going to be school. And of course, there's certain certifications that you need. But I don't believe that college is a scam. I believe that some people that do not go with a vision or a plan, they feel that they get scammed. That's my belief. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo that. I don't think college is a scam, but I would say that you have to know like why you're going, right? Like, because again, like there are certain ways that there are people who didn't go to college, right? Who are doing very well for themselves. But I think college is not just from like for the educational component, but it's also for the community and networking, right? Because you may not have met someone who, if you didn't go to college, that may later be your business partner. Like there are a lot of co-founders and like high achieving business people or like individuals in general who met their team in college, right? So I feel like college is is a place for you to really find yourself as an adult, right? Without like any outside interactions, where you're meeting with people who are going through similar things as yourself or even different, right? Because it also gives you an opportunity to have different perspectives. So I think it's like, what are you going for? Like, if you're going there to have a good time, then yeah, you may feel like at the end of it, I didn't get what I'm paying for, right? Or if you kind of go there and you don't seize the opportunities, like you kind of go around there, like you like barely go to class, you like barely talk to your professors, you just party and stuff all day. Like at the end of it, yeah, you're probably gonna get a degree, but you may not necessarily get the job you want. So I feel like college is not something that kind of like, I feel like people kind of put college in this box where they feel like, okay, it's just a place to go get educated, a very expensive education I might add. But there's some people who go to college for free, right? Because of scholarships and whatnot, or sports. But I think if you look at college as a place for opportunity, if you look at it as a place as like a resource to kind of refine some of the skills that you already have, or even help you discover what they are. Because like, how many of us like know what we're doing at 17 and 18 years old? Not many of us. Some people, great. I think those people are, I don't know, like they're an anomaly, right? But I know for a fact, like at 17, 18 years old, the path that I had for myself then and where I am now in my 30s is very different, right? So I think college is a place that allows you to kind of discover that. So I would echo to what you said. I honestly don't think it's a scam. I think certain degrees you don't have to go, right? Or just certain things, like if you're running a family business, you may not necessarily need to go because you have mentors. You have people that can kind of show you the ropes. But I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want someone operating on me if they're not board certified. They haven't had residency. Like, I need you to have your name and then a like elemental P at the end of it, right?
I got you.
Or you don't want
Facts.
someone building your buildings and not
course.
being educated or like not understanding like certain like theoretical math concepts. Otherwise, the bridge is gonna fall. So I think certain things you have to go to college. Certain degrees you don't have to. And I'm not gonna sit here and like tell you which, because I don't want people coming for me.
Of course.
But yeah, I would say that for sure.
One thing that resonated with me is when you mentioned earlier you wanted to go to school for, I think it was gyno, right? And I've read that you're also a certified doula. Does that have anything to do with it because you're working closer with gynos?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like maternal and child health is something that I'm always going to be passionate about, even as a young age. I think it really sparked when my mom got pregnant.
Okay.
And being that English wasn't her first language, I would go with her to a lot of her doctor's appointments. And in doing that, I'm like 12, 13 years old. So like she's having me trying to translate what her doctors were saying. And a lot of what her doctors were saying, I didn't even know what those words meant. So I would like write them down and then go home and like go on the internet or like read books at the library. And I just found it so fascinating. So being a doula allows me to do more community-based work. Okay. But even in my public health degree, I majored in, or I like specialized in maternal and child health. So I love everything maternal and child health related because they're, especially within our community, like Black women are, like you guys hear the statistics, like for maternal mortality rates, right? Like Black women are 3 times more likely to die than their counterparts, right? But not only that, but we have the highest maternal mortality rates in the United States, like as a wealthy, developed nation, which is unheard of, right? And 80% of those are preventable. So my question is like, why? Why is that happening? Like what is going on?
That was going to be my question. Why?
Yeah, like why is it happening, right? So what is happening from a systemic level that's causing some of these things, especially since they're preventable, especially since we have all these resources? And I just realized I think the large part of it is like, I'm sure there's so many factors, but I think one, it's the way that the doctors are being taught. I think they're really big on like doing things that are, I want to say like, there's like a methodical way of doing things, like not necessarily listening to their patients. So as a doula, it allows me to be that extra like advocate, right? It allows me to give the mothers a voice on what I want and what I don't want. Like, oh, like I want delayed cord clamping, or no, I don't want to labor on my back, or, oh, Akira, can you help me with a birth plan? Some women didn't even know what a doula was until they got pregnant, right? And some women don't realize that, like statistically speaking, doulas and midwives, they help with better health, like birth outcomes, not just during pregnancy but also postpartum. Because I think what happens too is that when women give birth, the baby's here, everyone's great, and then the mom kind of like gets taken a back seat because now everyone's focus is on the baby. Like, how's the baby doing? Is the baby eating? But how is the mom doing? Like, how is she handling her emotions, right? Because she just went through something very traumatic. Like birth can be traumatic or not, but like it like takes a toll on the body, right?
It's a change.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's huge change, like physical change, emotional change,
Right.
like psychological change. Like, it's because you don't know who you are until you are a mother, right?
Right.
So I think oftentimes like birth doulas, postpartum doulas, it allows me to like take a step back and ask the mom, like, hey, are you in pain? Like, are you sad? Like, are you sleeping? Like, do you have support at home? And I feel like even as an OB-GYN, I would have been the same way. I think this allows me to do it from a different lens, but it's still the same work or similar work, I would say. Yeah.
Is that what birthed the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like the idea for the podcast, by the way, so like I have a podcast, it's called The Real Tea on PNP, pregnancy and postpartum. And that came about because a lot of my friends and like people that I've worked with as a doula, they were talking about how like they didn't know certain things, or like they were finding things about their body, about their baby, about their experience as they were happening to them. And they felt like for them, it was just too late, right? Because sometimes if you're in labor, and you didn't realize that you had all these options, and you like an emergency comes about, like everything's happening so quickly. And doctors oftentimes, they try their best to say what's going on, but if it is a life or death situation, there's not much time, right? So then what that does is that it creates a huge level of fear for the mothers, because here they are about to give birth, and then they're talking about how like the cord is wrapped around the baby's neck, or they're experiencing preeclampsia, or there's internal bleeding, and the thing is that it's very scary. But like with the podcast, if we're having these conversations, it gives you not only like the voice to kind of like talk about what you want and what you don't want, but then it also helps you be more informed, right? So like the podcast, what I want to do, or my aim for it, is to like build community, which is great, right? Because sometimes you may need someone who's going through something similar to help you with the process, or just someone who did it before you, right? Like maybe you're experiencing something and you're like, man, no one understands me. Like I'm talking to my husband and he doesn't get it. I'm talking to my friends and they don't get it. But like someone who had a baby recently be like, oh no, like I experienced this too. Or no, girl, this isn't normal. I think you should get that checked. But then also I want it to be a resource. Like maybe you have questions like, what is a doula? Like what is the difference between a doula and a midwife? Like what does it mean to labor down? Like what does it mean to like have birth in the water versus the hospital versus a birthing center? All these questions that your doctor doesn't have time to tell you in the like little bit of time that they see you during their appointments, this kind of extends the conversation. So that's like my aim, to literally give you like the real tea, the good, the bad, the ugly. Like I want women to go into this experience having had every information that they needed, so that way they are more confident in making their choices.
What's one of the most shocking experience as a doula that you've experienced?
I feel like in the birthing space, like a lot of things shock me, because every labor is different, right?
Okay.
I could see, I don't know how many I've seen so far. I've seen like quite a few, but every experience is different. I think like one of the most shocking ones that I've seen was, I just remember specifically I was working in a hospital, and that's when I realized that, okay, like there's still so much work to do. But I remember one of our doctors, he was getting ready to go on vacation. Like it was like around like Christmas time, and he was trying to get out of there, but he still had like one more mom that was laboring. And I think what really shocked me was like how fast he was trying to get her to progress, because he wanted to be in and out. He was like, she's taking too long, like I have to go, like I have a flight to catch tonight. And I feel like what really like hurt me is because the fact that like this was her first time having a child, and he was rushing the process so he could leave, right? And in doing that, long story short, like they ended up having to do like a rush delivery. She like tore, and then because she tore, like there were so many complications, and then he was rushing to close her up. And then when he did that, like the suture snapped and he lost the needle. So then now he couldn't find the needle. We're looking for the needle. He can't find the needle. And mind you, the fact that she's open, quite literally, it leaves her room for exposure and infection. And mind you, he's not communicating that. And I'm seeing it. Like I'm like, what is going on? So like, she doesn't know what's going on. Her husband's confused.
Was she awake or?
She was awake. Yeah. She was awake.
They saw him awake.
Yeah, she's awake. And I'm looking at him like, what is going on? Like, he cannot find the needle, and he can't leave because you got to find it. So what ended up happening is that eventually, right after like 5 or 10 minutes of him trying to find the needle because he was rushing to close her up, he was like, I can't find the needle, so we're gonna have to have anesthesiology. And the husband's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you can't find the needle? He's like, I don't know where it is. It's probably still stuck inside of her. I'm gonna have to come. So like anesthesiology came, and also radiology. So then they had to, like, mind you, she's still open, right? So like now they have to like close her up, call radiology. Radiology had to come up with like this big machine to kind of like do an x-ray. The needle was in fact still stuck in her. So what ended up happening, it like stopped and it like got lodged like probably at the base of her pelvis, right? Okay. And then he had to fish it out, and then he found it, and then he had to sew it. But bear in mind, that pushed back everything. So he ended up having to cancel his flight anyways, right? But then you also made it traumatic for her because she's panicking. Because she's been open for, at this point, hours, just like waiting for people to come up like this. Like, and you can't close her up, you can't do anything. And I think that really was very shocking to me, because I was like, I get it, like they're under a lot of pressure. I get it, you're probably tired and you need a vacation. But then I was like, there has to be a point where you prioritize your patient, right? Like, because you rushing throughout this process made you even more late. Like, had you let things progress naturally, who knows? Or just move your flight, you know what I mean? So I think when I saw that, like, it really put like things in perspective for me. Like, there are certain clinicians that really do the work because they love the work, and there's other people who just do it just like cash a check essentially. But it's at the expense of like someone's life, right? So I think about that patient often, because I'm like, what ended up happening to her? Like, did she ever get an infection? Does she have a scar?
She have another child?
Did she have another child? Because like for me, I would have been like it was scary. It was very scary, because here he is, like, because I remember holding her leg, and he's like across from me, and he's just going really fast. I'm like, why is he just like sewing her up so fast? And then as he's pulling it up, things snapped. And then he looks at me, and I look at him like, yeah, you messed up. You know what I mean? And then he's like, and then, you know, there's blood everywhere. So he's like,
because it's hard to find that. Yeah,
you can't find it because there's like a basin where it's kind of like called a catch fall. So it catches all the liquid and everything. But also, it's putting him at danger, right? Because now he's going like this, and what if the needle hits him, right? So then now the needle sticks him, like there could be some sort of contamination. He could get sick. Like, there's so many things that were at play. And then also it created a level of fear and anxiety for her husband, because he's like helpless at this point. Right. Because yeah, he's upset, but like what can you do? He can't do anything. So I think about her a lot. Like, I wonder how she's doing.
Wow, yeah. That sounds very traumatic.
Yeah.
So I would say then, what's one of the best experience that you've had as a doula?
Oh, there's so many. I think so. I had a friend recently that I was her doula, and she was like, "Why do you do this?" Literally, she was like, "You're like staying on your feet for like 2-3 days. You're like not sleeping." And then when she delivered her baby, in like that moment where I saw his head come out, and then she put him, it was a boy, put him on her chest, and she started crying, and like everyone was so emotional. And she looked at me, and then I was like, that's why. I was like, for that moment right there, like the fact that like you were, like I'm able to see like life come into the world and see how beautiful it is, and just see how much like God has his hand in everything. It's hard to describe. Like, I think like if you haven't experienced the birth of a child, it's just very like life-changing, because you literally are like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I can't believe like I get to meet this person. I can't believe that like I get to see new life being created, and to see that like, yeah, labor is a lot of work, but that moment right there it makes everything else like null and void. Like, it makes it worth it in a sense.
What is postpartum depression?
Okay, so like that's interesting, because I feel like people make the mistake between postpartum depression and baby blues. So like sometimes like shortly after a woman gives birth, her hormones do like this surge, right? So like they surge up during pregnancy, and then after she gives birth, it kind of like shoots down. So in an effort for her hormones to regulate themselves emotionally, she's going through a lot, right? Like, so with baby blues, she may end up being sad, not just because of the fact that like she's experiencing all these hormonal changes, but also she has to wrap, like her like body and her mind have to catch up, because it's like, oh, I'm a mother, like I have a child, like this is like now my responsibility. So it's just a lot to process. So like that's like baby blues, but like baby blues last only like a few days, right? So like the first 3 days, she's just kind of like taking everything in, because it's like a new space. But with postpartum depression, it's similar symptoms of like sadness, like not sleeping, crying, like kind of like having hysteria or like anger or like irritability, but it's very prolonged, right? So like some women could feel like, why am I not happy right now? Like, why am I not bonding with my child? Like, why am I not like jumping for joy, or like, why don't I have to feel like this maternal instinct? Like why am I upset? Like, why don't I want to touch my baby? Like, why am I angry, right? Like, why am I like upset at my husband or my partner for whatever reason? Like, all those things can manifest into postpartum depression. And or even it could also be like sadness over like the loss of your previous life, because you had this life before where you were like, you would get up and go hang out with your friends, you would sleep through the night, and then now you're not. So postpartum depression can look like different things for different people, but essentially it's that. It's like sadness, irritability, loss of sleep, loss of appetite, all those things. And one thing I would say is that, like, I think it's important for not only like mothers but partners to really pay attention to see what's going on, because there's a difference between her feeling overwhelmed and her like completely on the brink of having like postpartum psychosis, which is also a thing where it's like you think about killing yourself or your baby. At that point, that's when you have to like really seek professional help, because you never know at what point that can happen.
And that's postpartum psychosis.
Postpartum psychosis, like that one is very serious, because like they could hurt themselves or the mother, and then oftentimes some women will either check themselves in, or their doctor would recommend going to maybe an outpatient clinic or even prescribing medication in order for them to like deal with that.
So as a doula, how do you help in that process? Like a woman after she gives birth, that post-birth time, what does your role entail?
Yeah, so like it depends on like the client or like the patient or the mom, right? So like my job is to help make that transition easier, because like in doing so, it also alleviates some of the postpartum depression symptoms, right? So after the baby's born, 3 days, like 2 or 3 days after, you like check on the mom, ask how she's doing, ask her if she's sleeping, if she wants you to come over and like spend time with the baby so she can get a few hours of sleep. I do that.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah, I do that. Postpartum. Yeah, so like postpartum doula, or it's like, I'm really tired. Can you like, I don't know, like help me wash the dishes, or like put a load of laundry for me, or can you help cook me a meal or something, right? So like I could do that as well. It depends on what she needs, right? Or if she's just like, I'm having trouble breastfeeding, right? So then I would give her some of the tools to help her lactate, right? So all these things, it's just kind of like an extra person to be there with the mother when either the partner or the father isn't there, or she feels like, you know what, I just need like a little extra help.
Okay. One topic that is not talked about as much is that, I want to get your view on it, is that men also go through postpartum.
That is true, yeah. So I see you're doing your research.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah, so like men go through postpartum depression as well. And that's something that it's not talked about a lot. And I agree with you, because again, right? So during pregnancy, I feel like the focus is mommy and baby, right? Like, oh, you're like getting so big. Oh, is the baby growing? Are you eating? Baby gets born, shifts, right? And it's just pretty much baby. Like the mom is literally just kind of like a vessel. Like, okay, are you feeding the baby? Like, are you changing the baby's diaper? Cool. But then you're also neglecting the partner throughout this time. Because mind you, he also has to deal with your hormonal changes as well. Because the person that he's known his entire life, or like for the duration of you guys being together, is now no longer that person. So he has to adapt, right? And then also there's a pressure that comes with it. Like, okay, everything, like you could be in your head, you feel like you're doing everything right. And then she's like, no, you're doing everything wrong. She's hypercritical. She's like complaining to you. She's like telling you that you're like frustrating it and making it harder. And you're just telling yourself, I'm just trying my best. So because of that, it weighs on you too, because now you feel like you're not fulfilling a role as a man, a father, a partner, because she's going through these things that you don't necessarily like understand, but you have to be supportive, and you feel like the help that you're giving her isn't enough. So postpartum depression definitely affects men, but I think what ends up happening is that men don't talk about it enough, right? So I think that's why it's important too for like men to have community, right? Like there's an organization, I think it's called like Dads for Doulas, or I forgot the other name, but basically it's a community, it's like a nonprofit organization, and what they do is that they provide support for men who are have like partners who are pregnant, but also for postpartum. Okay. And like it has been shown to be helpful, because then you could pretty much talk to somebody else who's gone through it, right? Because like I have a lot of friends, especially like who are like, man, like I don't know what to do. Like I'm also tired. Like I'm like going to work. I'm trying to do this, and like they kind of break down as well. And it's like this is like they're navigating new territory, just like how the woman is navigating. Like all this is new, right? Or even sometimes they'll hold their child and they'll start crying. And you're like, why doesn't the child want to be on me? Like, what in reality, children, I think up until like 6 months, don't know that they're a separate entity from their mother. So like in their head, they're like, I'm still a part of mommy. So here you are as the dad trying to like hold him or her.
Right.
And they're just like, get off me, where's my mom?
They're confused.
They're confused, and now you're feeling bad because you're like, why doesn't my son or my daughter want me?
Right.
And you feel like, but it's like not about you. It's because like they're so used to hearing mommy's heartbeat. They're so used to hearing mommy's smell, right? They're so used to like just being literally, because they were literally inside her. That's all they know for right now. So they may have some, like, I think it takes them a little bit longer to be like, oh, okay, this is dad. So I think for me too, like as a doula, like my biggest thing is like I do skin to skin with mom for the first hour after the baby's born, so that she could lay like the baby could lay on the mother's like chest bare, but also skin to skin with the dad too, because that bonding helps. It not only helps you bond, but it helps them bond as well to do skin to skin.
That's beautiful.
Are you aware of any cases where postpartum psychosis, where the woman will hurt the child?
Probably not off the top of my head, but yeah, like I feel like I've read a lot of articles where that's happened, which is when I feel like that's why the term came about, because there are women who either like, I want to say like shortly after postpartum or a few months after, they'll like be caught killing their kids, like just like murdering them, right? And I think for a while you like think to yourself as someone from the outside looking, how could you do that? Like how could you hurt your child in that way? But it's like, are you asking yourself the right questions? Like, what was her support system like? Like, what was her mental health like? Like, what were some of like the resources that she was providing? I think people need to ask themselves that question, like, what got her there?
Right.
Not so much of the act itself, but what are the small incremental things that led to the act?
Accumulate to it.
Exactly. So I think we as a society need to pay attention to these things. And then I think that's why it's so important for women to have community, like not just like their partners or their family, but like their friends, but even strangers. Like, believe it or not, a lot of women have told me that, you know, it's my neighbor that caught something that like was like, hey, I don't think you're okay. Not my husband, not my sister, not my friend, but someone who saw me like briefly and they kind of knew who I was, or like had seen me a certain way, and they were
something
like,
was off, something was not right.
Or like a coworker, right? Because like, as you know, like in the United States, maternity leave is only like 6 weeks. 6 weeks, which is like insane, right? Because like at 6 weeks, I think it's like up to 12 weeks, but like even then, women are still bleeding, they're still going through their changing, they're still lactating, and then having to go back to work as if nothing happened. I don't think that's right? So because of that, it may be a coworker. It's like, you're like making these like mistakes at work, I don't think you're there, like you seem very irritable. Take a few days off, you know what I mean? And for some women, unfortunately, they don't have that option.
While going through your podcast, I noticed that you covered a story for Adriana Smith. What happened? Yeah,
so just to give you a brief synopsis. So Adriana Smith, I believe she was a nurse at Emory Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. And because of that, she had a stroke. So like she was, I think at the time, like 4 months pregnant. And she had a stroke, right? And because she had a stroke, she went to the hospital. Prior to that, though, complaining about, hey, I'm having really bad headaches.
Right.
I think something's wrong. And of course, like her doctors kind of like neglected it or like downplayed it. Oh, take this for pain. It's nothing. And she's like, no, I think there's something more there because these headaches are really bad, right? So she went, I think, a few times, and they pretty much like kind of like were super passive about it and put it on the back burner. As a result, her partner at the time woke up in the morning and she had a stroke and she went unconscious. So they rushed her to the hospital and she hadn't woken up since then, right? And because of the Georgia law now, unborn children, or fetuses rather, are protected under that law.
Right.
So because of the fact that she was so early in her pregnancy and she was undergoing a coma, they weren't sure when she was gonna like wake up, right? So because of that, her family, her partner, whoever, didn't have the option to either like terminate the pregnancy or decide what they wanted to do. The option was already made for them. Because
of the state, because I believe at the time I was reading an article that says that Georgia law, when the person is in that state, then they don't have a power of attorney, or the spouse, no one could decide for them. The state would take over, right? Yeah. So which is pretty crazy. So what ended up happening with that situation? Yeah. So like, unfortunately, she was in a coma, I think at the time, for like about 90 days around the article came out. So then at this point, she was probably like 7 months pregnant at the time, and her family was like,
this is not a healthy state for the baby to be in, because she's just like laying on her back. She's like not moving. They like didn't have the option, and they had found that there was water in the baby's brain. Right? Already.
Oh, wow.
So there were so many complications that were happening, and they weren't even sure if the pregnancy was going to be viable. But the option, again, was removed from them. So because of that, they were not only dealing with her hospital bills, but that hospital bill to keep the child alive. Because what they wanted to do is just put her to rest. And because of that Georgia law, they weren't able to, because the child was still living inside her.
Right.
So she essentially was like a walking incubator, right? And you have to bear in mind, like, we don't know what these people's situations are, but if they wanted to make that choice, they should have been in their right to make that choice. But they were forced to keep her alive, right? And then I think she ended up having the baby early, right? And then they like put her to rest, and the baby's still in the hospital till this day.
I think the baby was admitted to like a NICU, I believe.
Yeah, baby's in NICU, and they're still trying to figure out not only viability, but also like brain activity. Like, is this child going to live a quote unquote normal life? Like, are they going to have any sort of like developmental delays? We don't know that, right? But again, the cost, because who's going to like cover the cost? The family, not them, not the hospital.
Right.
The family's going to cover the cost.
You don't think insurance will pick that up? Like, as far as...
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what their insurance claims are, but I do know that what was shared publicly was that the mother, Adriana Smith's mother, was like, we can't afford this. We can't afford to keep her alive. So then not only did they can't afford to keep her alive, they put her to rest after all this time. And then now they're also keeping that baby alive in the NICU. So this is like a huge financial burden, because think about it. Like, not only from like a traumatic perspective where you just lost your like daughter and your grandchild, but then you're left with this very hefty hospital bill. So it's like, it's kind of like you're reliving that same scenario over and over again.
Do you think the hospital will send them that bill in reality?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I'm sure like they have lawyers, and like the hospital could talk about like what their choices are. But I do feel like the doctors were also, they had their hands tied, because it's like, you have a choice, right? So you have the option, okay, what is best for my patient? But then I'm also combating this state law. Like, I could lose my license, I could lose my job, like, but then I know maybe ethically this may not be the right decision. So it's like, what do I do? At that point, you can't do anything. You just kind of have to do what the law says, because you don't want to throw away like your career, like the opportunity to help other people, because you wanted to make that call.
Hey, that situation in itself was messed up, because when because I was watching the mom interview with the news, she was mentioning that it's kind of ironic that she's a nurse, and the one place that she provides service to other people, she was not able to receive that service back. Yeah. And she's there and she's unconscious, and nobody was able to help her, and they pushed her away.
Yeah. And all that could have been avoided, right? Because like maybe they would have like taken an extra step when she was first brought in with her headache. Like, all that stuff could have been prevented. But I think too, it's also important that like we as a people need to have these conversations before they happen. Like, I think this is why insurance policies are also put into place. Like, okay, you need to have a conversation with your partner in the event that something happens, right? Let's say, for example, you're pregnant, right? Like, it's like, oh, like your partner's pregnant, and she's like, well, you know what? If you have to choose between me and the baby, choose me. These are conversations that you don't want to think about, but you need to have.
Of course.
And it needs to be like in writing. Like, there needs to be something put in place that's saying that, okay, I'm her power of attorney, I'm gonna make decisions. This is what she would have wanted. Because the time to make those decisions during the event is too late. Right. So I think it's also important, and also to respect the person's wishes. Like, you may not necessarily agree with them, but then if that's what she wants and like that's what's best for your family, you guys have to come to agreement and make sure that that is well known within your, I want to say like your medical team. Like, they have to know, like, these are the decisions that we want. In the event that this happens, this is where we're going forward. And to also know your state laws. Like
that's what I was going to say, because even if you have that, in that case, if the baby's there in Georgia, it makes it a little bit, still make it kind of tough.
It's tough, yeah. But like also accounting for that. Okay, where are we living? We're living in the state of Florida. We're like living in Georgia. Yeah. What are the laws? Like, familiarizing yourself with some of those laws, so that way you're not like blindsided. Yeah, that matters.
And that field itself, having to experience that, do doctors, doulas, and medical staff, do they also seek therapy?
I mean, I can't speak for them.
I mean, is it recommended in that field to seek therapy?
It depends. I think it depends on the doctor, the individual. Like, there's so many factors into place, but I'm sure like Some of them do. I don't know if it's required or not. I can't speak for them, but I do think it's important for any professional who like has to make those life altering decisions or who has a very high level, high stressful job needs to seek therapy. Not just doctors. Like think about first responders. First responders also need therapy, right? Because they see a lot of stuff that they then become immune to. Right? Like, for example, like there are some people who are squeamish with blood, but then I've seen it so many times, it doesn't faze me, right? But an accumulation of those traumatic events, whether I think they affect me or not, subconsciously are going to bother me in some way, and they're also going to shape my decisions. So I think it's important for any profession that deals with any high stress, high level, like traumatic things that they're seeing on a consistent basis to seek therapy, or to get help enough to the fact that you're not just carrying that burden, right? Because I think think that people who like in those roles, I think they tend to be empaths, right? Like they're in this career because they care about people and they feel for people and they want to help people and they have like a big heart of service. So don't you think that's gonna affect you eventually? Like you're seeing like these people chronically die, like chronically be sick. I think all that plays a role for sure.
Especially when you're not able to save the life, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So
now there's studies coming out saying that men also have a role to play with miscarriages because a lot of the burden was placed on women. Saying that, hey, the woman's not able to carry the child, not able to keep the child. But now there's studies showing that men's health really play a vital role to a miscarriage.
Not in all miscarriages, but in some. Yeah.
And some.
Some miscarriages.
So you would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't really say much other than the fact that this is new information. I think it's good to know these things because, like you said, for the majority of, I don't know, since like the beginning of time, women were always blamed for it, right? So the fact that we now have new studies that are indicating that, oh, okay, like it's not only the quote unquote woman's fault.
Right.
Like there could be DNA segmentation in semen. It could be like a choice of the diet. Like one thing that I thought was really interesting was that men's are responsible for the formation of placenta. So like whether a woman experiences like a really harsh, like what was it, like first trimester with like her morning sickness and everything, that is directly tied to her partner. Whoa.
How is that?
Like his diet, his levels of stress, all that can be passed on through sperm. So let's say, for example, he's not eating well, he has a poor diet, or he's participating in like high risk behavior, that will play a role in it. Like that will show up in his semen, and then once he does, impregnates his like partner or whatever, her health is directly tied to that. I think there's a responsibility for both people that like if you are trying to conceive, it shouldn't be at the time of conception. It's like, okay, you know what? Like, I think we need to do it, like, as a people, specifically Black people, plan for your pregnancies. Like, try your hardest. Okay, you know what? I like want to have a kid. What is that going to look like in the next 6 months to a year? Like, okay, then, babe, we need to start working out. We need to start eating healthier, limiting the amount of alcohol and processed foods. Like, we got to make sure that we're in the optimal health for both parties. Like, she can already start taking prenatal vitamins, right? And then he can also take vitamins as well. Like, does he have any deficiencies? Like, all those play a role. And I would even go a step further and do genetic testing. Like, do testing to see, okay, what are some things that run in the family? What are, like, if we were to have a child, like, what are the probabilities of them going through these certain types of, like, ailments, right? So then because of that, you are aware of what you're going up against. But I think it's all cool. I don't know. I'm like a huge nerd, so like whenever like, this new stuff comes out, I'm like, aha! So I think it's cool, yeah.
They're looking to remove vaccine mandate in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So have you read about that?
I've seen headlines. I honestly have not read too much into it. But I think what's interesting is that like, I feel like that's also political. I feel like it can be political in that sense because I know for me with a science background, like I know the benefit of vaccines, right? But I also understand that people are also entitled to the choices that they make. Personally, I think I would need to look into it further. Like I know I have my personal opinions about the whole thing, about the mandates, but I just think people need to like educate themselves on what they want.
I think it's more like removing the mandates where they make it mandatory. For someone to get vaccinated or this consequence. I think they're removing that. Yeah. Where you still have the option to get the vaccines if you wanted to.
If you wanted to. Yeah, exactly. Like, but like at the time, like where I think the reason why they were putting these mandates into place is because there was an outbreak of these diseases that were impacting public health, right? Because like you had a large population of people getting sick at the same time, right? And in doing so, you don't have the resources to take care of all these 6 people. Like think about COVID, right? Like people were running to the hills and screaming in masses because they were not properly prepared for it, right? So like now they had like vaccine mandates or whatever. So like back then when we had like chicken pox and polio and Hep A through C and all that stuff, like there's a reason why these mandates were put into place, because there was at what point, like a point in our historical society where there was a large number of people getting sick, and they're like, if this is preventable, why not? Like, right? Especially when you're having your children commingle with other kids in the public education system, right? Because I'm sure in private schools it probably wasn't mandatory, but in a public school system that's funded publicly by like state and federal dollars, yeah, like they can mandate what they want, right? Because essentially it's tied to what they're willing to fund. Yeah.
By the way, I do want to congratulate you for not being nominated.
Oh,
yes.
Young professionals under 40. How does that feel?
That was really exciting. I think for me, I was like, I'm sure I've talked about this before, or you guys will see it soon, but I think I was excited because a lot of times that we do the work as Yo Pros or just professionals in general, you don't really think about like, oh, I'm doing this for an award. You're just thinking about like, how can I make a change and an impact for the like people around me? And I think what makes Yo Pro so special is the fact that it's from the Haitian community, and being a proud Haitian American, like being Haitian is so like integral and like interwoven into the work that I do. It's really nice to be recognized by my people, because it's like it makes me feel like a love letter to home. Like it makes me feel like I'm helping the people that like the very people that I like, whose shoulders that I stand on.
Right. Anyone that's probably looking into going into the healthcare field or the health field, that's probably navigating, or maybe should I go this route or this route? What would you be able to say to them that are watching?
Okay, so I have to look at the camera?
Yes.
I would say if you aspire to be in the health field, or if you want to help people, to fight the good fight, like to be resilient. Like the health field, like any other field, is very difficult. And I think it's important to remember your why. Like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I want to help people? Because you're going to have long nights, and you're going to have hard days, and you're going to be frustrated, and there's certain things that aren't going to go your way. But if you remember your why and the reason behind doing it, then at the end of the day, you're going to look back and realize that this was all worth it. So I would say just fight the good fight.
What impact do you think the feminist movement had on the community, on the Black community, on the African American community?
How much time do we have? Because I feel like that's a whole conversation altogether. And I don't want to sit here and pigeonhole myself into what my political views on feminism is. I think I want to give the space and the opportunity for people to figure that out for themselves. I can't speak for everyone. I have my opinions about it, but I think people need to really go down that rabbit hole and be like, okay, like, was it for our benefit? Who reaped it? Who started it? Why was it put into place? The
reason I'm asking now, because there's I believe Candace Owen had a whole segment about it. She was talking about it, and then she mentioned that the CIA was the group of people who funded the whole feminist movement.
Yeah, that I can't speak to. I haven't seen the episode, but 2, I haven't looked into it, because I don't like speaking on things that I don't have proper knowledge on.
Understood.
Because it just doesn't make any sense. I think there's like, what is it? Is it an Abraham Lincoln quote? It's like about the fool. It was like, it's better to not say anything and to be deemed a fool, but it's worse to like say something and then remove all doubt. I think I'm paraphrasing or something like that.
That answer was very political.
Yeah. I got
very smart.
Training. You got a little bit of PR training.
You want to close it out? You want me to close it out?
I could close it
out.
out.
Okay.
The last name Byas, it's not a very common Haitian last name. How did that come about?
That's a good question. I think I spoke to my dad about this, but he was saying that we are from, believe Scottish descent.
Okay.
So I want to say his father's father, so his great-grandfather or grandfather was from Scotland. So I don't know what ended up happening there, but they settled in Haiti, and then he ended up getting married, and that's why we carry the Bias last name. So Bias is of Scottish, Irish descent.
Do you have anybody else in the medical field that's in your family?
Oh yeah, quite a few. I have aunts, uncles, some cousins. I have a cousin right now. She's in dental school. Okay. She's actually graduating next year, so I'm really excited for her. But yeah, we have a few, I want to say.
Parents, grandparents,
Parents,
uncles?
yeah. I have, my grandmother was, I believe she was a nursing assistant. I have aunts who are nurses. I have other aunts who are also nurses. It's like, Haitians. Like, I feel like I have so many people in the health field. But believe it or not, I have more individuals in the law field. So, like, on my dad's side, I have, like, a lot of lawyers, a lot of, like, political advocates, a lot of, like, governmental administrators. So, I think it's very interesting when I have a conversation with them. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that about you. So
You have a bachelor, you have a master. What's next for you?
I don't know. Everyone keeps asking me that. What's next? I don't know. You tell me. Like,
Medical field, law school?
I don't know. I think right now, what I'm trying to do is like focus on like doing the work, and then if I feel like I can do more by getting another degree, or somebody wants to pay for it, I really appreciate that. Like, I'll give you an answer if you're gonna pay for it. Then then I'll go in that direction.
How was your experience working at UM?
UM is great. Like, it's definitely a powerhouse. Like, I would say UM is very intentional about their branding, about their helping people, but they're also really dedicated to improving the professionalism of their employees. Like, one thing I realized is that even while I'm working there, like, they're really big on like professional development. So like we have like a lot of requirements for professional development that I think what they want us to do is like they take the time to invest in their employees, because they know that in turn their employees work so hard for them, and they're the true change makers of the organization.
What is one thing about you that nobody knows as far as things that you like enjoy? Because you mentioned Legos. Is there anything else that you enjoy doing when you're not busy in the community or you're not at work?
I'm like a big bookworm. Like, I love a lot of fiction novels.
What's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book? That's asking like someone who likes chocolate. Chocolate brand.
Name your five.
Top five.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's really tough to do. Okay, how about this? I'll name my favorite authors. Can we do that?
Okay.
Okay, so one of my favorite authors is Kurt Vonnegut. So he does a lot of like satire and like a lot of like political, like he pretty much like takes like political ideas and kind of like paints them, but also like kind of like pokes fun at like what is going wrong. So I like him, like a lot of his like brassness. And then Kennedy Ryan, like I love her books. Like I've read so many of them. I want to say like Before I Let Go. I have The Ringmaker, The Kingmaker, so like that. And then Tia Williams. I love me some Maya Angelou. Like she's great. And then who else? Ooh, it's so tough. Like I have so many. Ooh, James Baldwin, he's good.
I like James Baldwin's.
Fire Next Side, like it was like really like one of my favorites. If Beale Street Could Talk. What is that? What am I at? Like 4?
Yeah, one more.
I think she get 5.
What was it? Kurt Vonnegut, Baldwin, Tia Williams, Kennedy Ryan. It's tough. Okay, so I'm falling in love, I feel like, with a lot of like James Clear work, so like specifically Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits is a good book. Yeah.
So I like a lot of his books. So yeah, I would say like those are like my top 5, but they change. But those are my top 5 for right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What are you doing to give back in the community here?
My time. I'm giving my time. I'm giving my education. I'm giving my support. I try my best to help out where I can, whether it be with youth groups. So like what I do is that with my church organization, they kind of call me in for like youth talks with the young women, where we talk about like looking at sex from like not just like a faith-based perspective, but also practical as well, right? Because kids are still gonna do it, but just have them be smart about it. And then mentoring, like I do a lot of mentorship. I do a lot of like birth and community work. Like I recently started volunteering with the Southern Birth Justice, and they're doing phenomenal work, by the way, in the community. Like things that are happening behind the scenes, where they're helping women who are pregnant and incarcerated, women who don't have resources. And then I'm also a part of Black Moms Miami, where the co-founder is Nakiba and Jasmine. Like they're also doing great work. Like they're setting up Black women specifically in the Miami area, just like to have somebody to talk to, as I mentioned. And I feel like they're doing the work that like they've been doing it for so long, so they've made a name for themselves. So I really like that.
Who is your biggest motivation?
So for the longest time, I used to like look at other people for motivation, but I think for right now, at this point in my life, I'm trying to like outdo me. I think my biggest thing is like, how can I make myself 2% better every day?
Yeah. Okay. So out of all the accomplishments that you've had, because you're very accomplished.
Thank you.
What is the one that you hold most dearest and you think is your best accomplishment today?
It's hard to tell. I think for me, it's not so much about the accomplishment itself, but it's the lives that I've touched.
Okay.
So I think every time someone tells me like, thank you for something that I've done for them or how I supported them in any way, it just tells me that I'm on the right path. So I wouldn't say it's one singular accomplishment. I think it's all the accomplishments that I've had so far that has given me the tools that I needed to help people, really. So I would say that.
I think that's
Great
it.
answer. Thank you. It was a wonderful conversation that we had with Akira. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Plethora of knowledge, great experience, a dynamic force in the health field. We would like to take this time to thank all of our sponsors: AZ Formal Wear, Chick-fil-A of Miami Shores, Gourmet Gatherings, Stardust Studios, and Comprehensive Health Center. And would like to also take this time to thank you, all of our viewers and listeners, for tuning in and supporting us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember to hit the notification bell so you can get notified of all the upcoming episodes so you never miss an episode.